This is Whitetail Rendezvous Podcast with Bruce Hutcheon, episode number 013.
Welcome to Whitetail Rendezvous Podcast, where it is all about whitetail deer hunting tips, techniques, and the stories so you can become a more successful whitetail deer hunter. And now your host, Bruce Hutcheon.
Dr. Ken Nordberg is a full-time whitetail naturalist, hunting method researcher, outdoor writer, and wildlife photographer, as well as a seminar speaker. He's a feature editor of Midwest Outdoors and a field editor for Bear Hunting Magazine.
I'm Bruce Hutcheon, your host, and I'm really excited today to have Dr. Ken Nordberg from Minnesota on the show list. Hey, Ken, Dr. Ken, please say hi to our listeners.
Well, hi, everybody. I'm happy to be here.
Just give us some background, what you've been doing in the world of whitetails for over 50 years.
Well, yeah, that's for sure. Actually, 70 years. Well,
oh my goodness.
I'm a retired dentist with 3 college degrees, and 2 of those degrees helped prepare me for studying habits and behavior of whitetails and black bears. I began my unique hunting-related studies of wild whitetails 45 years ago. Since then, I've studied whitetails over much of North America, including 17 years in parts of Texas, New Mexico, and Arizona. My studies are still ongoing. One of these studies have been first to introduce and describe the 5 phases of the whitetail rut. After using primitive tree stands in my earliest years of research, tree stands then unknown, I've been encouraging whitetails to use them ever since. Beginning back in 1980 by magazine articles and books and countless seminars and 12-hour video series I created in 1986 entitled Whitetail Hunter's World, which is no longer available. Since then, I've written more than 700 articles about whitetails and whitetail hunting for many popular outdoor magazines, introducing several new and much improved hunting methods. And I've been a feature writer for Midwest Outdoors for about the last 25 years. Much of what you learn from articles written by others about whitetail hunters these days came from published results of my studies, which I'm rather proud of. I've also taught hundreds of hunters from all over America at my buck and bear hunting schools in the wilds of northern Minnesota. I've been hunting whitetails for 70 years. I took 3 deer my first year at age 10, being a farm kid. And I've been hunting mature bucks only with gun and bow for 45 years. And rare is the year during which I have not taken a mature buck since then. Though now 80 years old, I still have no plans to quit hunting or studying whitetails. I guess that's about it.
Thank you for that background information. And listeners, I've got my notepad out. I got my pen ready to go because I'm looking forward to some really fantastic discussion today about something that we all love, whitetails. Let's start right into the show. Dr. Ken, tell us your best hunting story. You know, you've been at it for a long time. What's the number one hunting story that strikes you as having, let's just call it, the biggest impact on your pursuit of whitetails?
Well, my best story of that kind today is short and to the point. You might entitle it, Key on Mature Bucks Only, by hunting within easy shooting range, downwind or wind, of very fresh tracks and or droppings made by mature, unalarmed, not trotting or bounding bucks. By doing this, it seems simple, doesn't it? By doing this, you can actually hunt bucks near where they are every day rather than where you merely hope they are. How's that for a tip? Sounds simple, but
well, let's expand. Let's just unpack that, because you gave a lot of information. I heard downwind. I heard fresh sign. I heard daily you can hunt a buck, and I'm putting some information in here that is not disturbed if you're hunting a similar area or a similar buck on a daily basis. let's talk about that a little bit more.
Well, in 1970, when I began my studies, I came to the obvious conclusion: little deer have little hoofs, and bigger deer have bigger hoofs, and the biggest deer have the biggest hoofs. So I began measuring hoofs and hoof prints of countless whitetails of both sexes and all ages and weights, live ones and dead ones. It didn't take long to realize I could actually identify 5 classes of deer by the lengths of their hoof prints alone, including fawns, yearling does, yearling bucks, and does 2 years of age or older, both of them have the same size hoofs. But what makes the difference there is that does have babies, and if you see smaller hoof prints, it's a doe. But also bucks 2.5 years of age and bucks 3.5 to 6.5 years of age. And those are the bucks I like to hunt. Here in Minnesota, and it's different for different states, but this can be figured out for hunters in every state. Here in Minnesota, any fresh track more than 3¼ inches long is not only the track of a mature buck, but it's near right now. We're near where that buck is right now. Or either that, or it soon will be near, at least within the next 24 hours. Now, via track measurements of very fresh deer tracks, I can not only key on mature bucks, the big ones, I ignore all the rest of those tracks, but just hunt where those big ones are found. But by a method of scouting inspired by our timber wolves, which we have a lot of up in northern Minnesota, I can keep close to them throughout a hunting season. That's kind of amazing. And that's the biggest reasons us Nordbergs have been particularly successful at taking mature bucks in the last 25 years. Where we hunt right now, because of a couple of really severe winters and wolves, our deer numbers have plummeted 67% in the last 2 to 3 years. And
wow.
Whereas hunters in surrounding areas have only been able to take one deer per 10 square miles, we keep taking our usual 4 mature bucks. And we have we set a limit for each year so that we don't overhunt our mature bucks in the 4 square miles we hunt. So, but we managed to take that number every year. So we're doing something right, that's for sure.
Yes, you are, Dr. Ken. Talk to me about your definition of a mature buck.
Well, my definition is any buck that's older than a yearling. I don't count, though yearlings have antlers, I don't count them as mature because they're still under the leadership and teaching of their mothers. They live on their mothers' ranges. They're not yet able to live in the wilds on their own. And so I count those as immature deer. But any buck, or any deer for that matter, that's 2.5 years of age or in the fall, is a mature deer able to live in the wilds on their own. So that's the definition of what I call mature. Now the bucks we prefer to hunt, we do take 2.5-year-old bucks every now and then, but especially newcomers in camp, those are their targets because they're easier to hunt. But generally, my boys and I, we hunt only bucks that are 3.5 to 6.5 years of age, and those are the big guys.
I'm just making down a short note there. So how long have you been going to the same hunting camp?
Well, the area where we hunt now, it's not only our hunting area, but it's my primary study area, 3 miles from the Canadian border. And we've been going there now for 25 years. And those wolf country mature bucks are the toughest bucks in the world, I think, to hunt. And you have to you have to do a lot of things differently than you would do in other places in the country. But we love it there. We love the country. We love the challenge of hunting bucks like that, and we're good at it. And so that keeps us going back to the same area.
Tell us about the actual hunting camp. What type of building? Do you have outbuildings?
Well, we have 2 big wall camps, and we're about to exchange one for a bigger wall camp. We heat those tents with barrel wood stoves and cots all through the things, and a dining room and one where we all get together noon and in the evening. And I love those tents. I love camping. I think camping where we hunt is half the fun. We get some cold weather, and but with those wood stoves of ours, we can keep warm in there when it's as cold as 27 below zero. Last year we had a lot of 12 below zero weather, but we can be barefooted in t-shirts in those tents when we're in camp. So that's great. I just love that kind of hunting where you can be right there. And the camp's kind of established to other hunters that, where we are, and our Minnesota hunters are pretty good about respecting hunting areas of others. And so we've had this area where we hunt pretty much to ourselves for 25 years, and we're careful with that. We, like I say, we don't overhunt. We're not interested in killing out. We don't like that. 4 big bucks a year is enough for us. We have most of it made into sausages, which we enjoy. And every year, of the 4 bucks we take it, most years, one of them will be, a really big one. It'll weigh over 300 pounds. We got bucks that size in Minnesota. It'll weigh about 305 pounds, and it'll be a 10 to, the biggest one is a 13 pointer. And, whereas, this area is not noted for record book racks, they're pretty nice racks. They're nice bucks, and we're always pretty proud to take them. So, we can't all get bucks like that every year. If we did that, we wouldn't have any big dominant bucks in our hunting area. So
you'd impact the gene pool. How big is the acreage?
Well, we hunt 4 square miles. Not the entire amount of 4 square miles, but one of those square miles is a denning area of timber wolves, and we share our country with timber wolves, and but it's about 4 square miles, and some of our stand sites are from our more or less centrally located camp are up to 2 miles away, so they're quite a ways. And we go to those stand sites in the darkness early in the morning. We want to be at our stand sites at least a half hour before first light in the morning, so we don't miss a minute of the first 3 hours of the day when we take 85% of our older bucks. So, we've had visitors there say, "Boy, you guys are really dedicated here. You're kind of serious." We get up at 4 o'clock in the morning and get up there and line the stoves and get ready to go, and off we go about 5:30. While it's still pitch dark out, and we sit very still for the next 4 to 5 hours, and then we come to camp at noon, and then out we go again, and that sort of thing.
Now, Dr. Ken, if there's a foot of snow, do you use snowshoes? Do you use snowmobiles? How do you get 2 miles away in a foot of snow?
Walk. I insist on that. I bet one son has been trying to introduce an ATV up there for years, but I, finally convinced him that's wrong. If you make ATV tracks in snow, everybody with an ATV is going to want to follow those tracks, and pretty soon we'll be looking for a new hunting area. So, no, we walk. Our trails that we use are deer trails. One year we had 3 feet of snow. That was in 1992. And 3 feet of snow on the ground on the opener. It came down on Halloween night. And we walked. And it was one of our best years of buck hunting. We got some really, really great bucks that year. So it's work, but it's worth it. And that's the way we do it. We're tough old guys.
Wow. I'm just sitting here, and we have listeners all around the Midwest, East Coast, down through Florida and through the Plain States. And I hope you everybody listening is hearing what I'm hearing. This is a camp that's been established for 25 years on public land, 4 square miles, sharing with wolves, and they consistently take deer. So I'm looking to have Dr. Ken on and some other, additional shows, because he just proves that no matter what you're up against, weather, other predators, you're still able to take mature bucks. Why do you love whitetail hunting so much?
Why do what?
Why do you love hunting whitetails?
Well, there's a lot of reasons. Partly I've touched on them already. I think half the fun is our deer camps, and we eat good food, we get good rest, we share all the work. We tell stories like all hunters do. To me, deer camp is the closest thing to heaven on earth. But there's other reasons. Having become good at hunting older bucks has really made hunting whitetails really fun for us. And just imagine you're out there scouting 2 to 3 weeks before the opener, like we do. And you find a spot that, for several reasons you think, boy, this is a good one, and I'm going to take a good buck here. Look at those tracks and droppings and all that kind of thing. And then on opening morning, you get the buck just like you thought you would. I think, that's amazing. I mean, you can't smile wide enough when that happens. And we do that all the time. We consider hunting in 2 phases. The first 2 or 3 days are one phase. That's before all the bucks we're hunting realize they're being hunted. And then from then on, when we get phase 2, then we change things. We have to move to different stand sites every half day, because once they know they're being hunted, they're going to be changing their habits and behavior and range utilization daily. And, but we're able to keep up to them and stay close to them. They can't shake us. And there aren't many bucks that can continuously avoid the hunter who hunts this way. And so we do well. And you can't, you just look forward to that. It might seem like a lot of work and all that walking and all that, but you look forward to it because it works, and then it isn't work anymore. It's fun, and we look forward to it. Can't wait to begin again. So those are the reasons I really like whitetail hunting.
Thank you for that. You mentioned stands. Now, are you in ground blinds? Are you in tree stands? Well, tell us how you got your camp sets up. Well, we hunted from trees when the kids first started hunting back in the early 1970s. We hunted from tree stands, and back then they were primitive because tree stands were unheard of then. Nobody hunted from tree stands. Stand hunting was sitting on a stump somewhere back then, but it really worked well for my studies. And with deer were really vulnerable to that back then. And you could almost reach out and touch deer walking by. Our platforms are only 6 feet above the ground, and deer would feed right under our feet, and they'd go over and lay down a few yards away. And all my kids took really good bucks. One of my daughters took one of the 4 biggest ever taken by a Nordberg when she was 13 from one of our early tree stands. And But by 1988, 89, we were starting to see things were changing. All of a sudden, bucks were running away from our tree stands like they had never done before, and they were avoiding them even if no one was in them. And we could see things were not working out well. We weren't seeing near as many deer. I started in 1990. Trying to figure out ways to restore buck hunting like we were used to. And the same was true of doe and estrus moose scents. So I started experimenting with ground level hunting. And after years of telling people, hey, if you want to take big bucks, you gotta be in a tree stand. And people come say, oh, they never get me up there in a tree stand. Well, now it's the other way around. Nobody wants to leave their tree stand. But we hunted ground level using backpacks, tools, and natural unaltered cover only. And starting day 3 or 4 of a hunting season. Some of the hunters in my camp still use tree stands during those first
2-3 days of a hunting season, and it's a great advantage. But after that, because we got to keep moving to stay with those bucks, we use backpack tools, and those can be carried without sound, and they can be put down without sound, and you're a lot less likely to tip off a nearby buck that you're near them. And then we just use natural cover. And if you're not used to hunting on the ground, you think, oh, that's terrible. How do you find that? Well, there's all kinds of natural cover, a lot more to hide your silhouette at ground level than up in a tree. And, no, our bucks up there are so good at, well, almost everywhere nowadays. Any buck 2.5 years of age or older will quickly recognize a hunter in any kind of stand on the ground or in a tree and begin avoiding the area. And during the hunting season, and most time we don't realize that's going on because we don't see it happening. But once we started the ground level hunting, then things changed again, and that's our primary way of hunting deer after day 3 or 4 of a hunting season. We start with tree stands early, and then from then on, we're on the ground. And
how long is your hunting season?
How long? 2 weeks.
2 weeks.
Yeah.
So when you go into camp, do you get in there 3 days before, 5 days before, 2 days before?
Yeah, we get in there 3 or 4 days before and set up camp and cut wood and split it and stack it for our stoves. And we don't do any scouting then. I remember a couple of years ago, some new people bought the land that I'd been leasing for quite a few years. And one day they stopped the camp and they said, gee, you know, they bought that land over there. It cost them $100,000, 80 acres. And they said, we're really disappointed that when we scouted it the day before the opener, there seemed to be like there were plenty of deer in there, but the next day there was no deer in there.
Oh, my goodness.
Talking about crazy. So anyway, we get up early. I enjoy that. Us guys get plenty that are in camp early. We get good night's sleep, and we're all set to go. And we aren't tired from driving 265 miles from home to get there. And so we're ready to go.
Thank you for that. Just to clarify, you mentioned leased land, and then we talked about public land. So just clarify, are you on public land, or is some of the land you're hunting?
We're on federal land, yeah. And where it's illegal to make trails and blinds. And I've done a lot of work studying what kind of blinds work best. 3 years ago, 50% of it was logged, and all we had was dirt up there, and it was really disappointing, you know. Well, after we lost so many deer in the last few years, half of that area that was dirt then has no deer in it at all right now, so we're anxiously hoping to see some improvement. Now, this winter was mild, so we have a lot of fawns this year, but if wolves don't keep eating 3 out of 4 of them by November, well, we'll start to see some increases again. But it's all public land, and I picked that area because it's especially rugged and roadless, and it's just kind of a mean area to hunt, you know. And even if you wanted to use ATVs there, it would be hard to do because of all the boulders and everything. It's all Canadian shield land, which means there isn't much dirt on the rocks, and there's lots of rocks and boulders everywhere. But it's heavily forested. There's beautiful areas in there, and so we feel fortunate. But like I say, Minnesota hunters are pretty good about respecting hunting areas of others, and our camps help in that regard. And so that's one of the reasons we do camp there.
Where do the deer feed? Because they're moving from their bedding areas to wherever they feed. Are there acorn crops or
no? It's all wild food. We don't put in food lots which we could, and because that's not considered bait by our DNR, but I think it's bait. But the food lots feed deer in spring, summer, and fall when they really don't need extra food. They don't starve then, and so they eat natural foods. And clear cuts, of course, are wonderful feeding areas. Usually beginning the first year, that'll be the best source of the thin-bladed grasses our deer love. And there's some clover out there, red clover growing in there. Somehow gets in there. And then after November, after the first week in November, they suddenly switch to browse up there, and then their major food becomes red bark dogwood or red osiers, and some other plants like moose willow and young sugar maple trees are red, and deer love them. When they cut an area, those stumps will be just bristling with those red suckers growing on them, and the deer love those. And but it's natural food, and you know, in the wintertime is when whitetails find it hard to find food. They want. That's when whitetails die from starvation, and especially when the snow is so deep that they can't get around very much. Well, anyway, so those red stems out there are their major food. They also eat white cedars along lake shores, up in our part of the country. But anyway, so they're stuck with natural food. There's been some winters, though, since 1990 where we've gone up there and put food out in wintering areas for whitetails to help get them through the winter. And but that's a long story, too.
Do you have yarding areas to carrying them over in the cedars, or explain any yarding areas that you have on your?
Well, we have so-called yarding areas. I prefer to call them wintering areas, and some are small, maybe only a couple dozen deer live there during the winter, and we've got some that are huge, and there might be as many as 500 deer in there during the winter months, especially along the north shore of Lake Superior. But and over years, when my brother and I would go up there and cut trees, cedar trees, and other types of food that whitetails like to get them through the winter. But wolves are awful hard on them in tough winters too. They get into those yards, and we found places where as many as 7 deer were killed by wolves in one night. And I suppose that was all right because it helped the surviving deer find more food for themselves. But those are the kind of places. Usually they're lowland areas with a lot of evergreens to give them protection from bitter winter winds and deep snow, and adjacent to areas that are feeding areas like long swaths full of red osiers and sugar maples and trees like that. So, and they're used year after year after year unless they get logged. And one of our major wintering areas where we hunt was logged. It'll be 40 years before it'll be a wintering area again. So.
Well, listeners, this is your host, Bruce Hutcheon, and I've got a page and a half of notes from Dr. Ken's discussions here today, and thank you for taking us to your deer camp in northern Minnesota. At this time, Dr. Ken, can you share with our listeners how they can reach you if they want to go to your website? See where your books are published.
Sure.
Just spend a few minutes here and tell us about how to contact you, where your information is available.
Okay. Well, when my next almanac, Whitetail Almanac, comes out, it will be on iTunes with Apple. I look for it there. And then, most of my books are available right now on the internet, on Amazon, for example. You can go to my website and order them, and I'll autograph them for you. That my website address is www. And then it's all small letters, Dr. Nordberg, that's Nordberg, on deerhunting.com. And you go to that and you'll find everything you want to know about me. I think 100 older magazine articles that you can read for free. And I'm on Twitter, and so you'll find me there as well.
What's your address on Twitter?
It's just, what is it, at Dr. Nordberg, and just type that in and you'll find it. And you have to go low on the list today because a lot of my tweets on there are way down on the list right now, but you'll find all kinds of good information on that as well.
Dr. Ken, thank you so much for being part of the Whitetail Rendezvous community. I look forward to having you on the show again. The wealth of knowledge that you shared today it certainly gave me a couple ideas, and I hope our listeners agree. And if you do, take a few minutes and tell us why you liked it. Tell us about why you liked it. Hit subscribe if you want to hear more. If you think it's awesome, rate us as a 5. And the best way you can thank Dr. Ken for being on the show is to tell a friend. Social media allows you to impact a lot of people, and I'm going to put a shout out for Dr. Ken as soon as I get off this interview. So again, thank you for being part of the Whitetail Rendezvous community.
As your host at Whitetail Rendezvous, I want to thank each and every one of you for spending your time with us today. I look forward to sharing with you in the next episode more whitetail hunting tips, techniques, and stories. Until then, keep the sun at your back, the wind in your face, and always be patient.
If you have any tips, comments, or suggestions, or what we can do to improve, because we're here to serve you, let us know. Thanks for listening to Whitetail Rendezvous Podcast at www.whitetailrendezvous.com.